Hello and welcome to PowerSpeaking Live. I'm Carrie Beckstrom, the host of this monthly series and the CEO of PowerSpeaking Incorporated. Whether you've got a big keynote coming up, are striving to project more confidence when speaking up in meetings, or are seeking advice on how to make your virtual presentations more engaging, you've come to the right place. Today's session is all about you. Your challenges, your questions, we're providing answers. So I urge you all to get comfy, settle in, have your questions at the ready, drop them in chat, and together we'll make this a very engaging, practical session for you all. And to help accomplish that, we have 3 panelists joining us today, all of whom are phenomenal facilitators and coaches for PowerSpeaking, and they have helped thousands of professionals own the room, whether it's a boardroom, a stage, or behind a screen. So you're in for a treat. First off, I'd like to introduce David Goad. David, you saw his impressive bio during the opening reel. I'll just add a few points of color. David, as you'll quickly find out, has an incredibly engaging, dynamic style, and he really has a knack for offering very actionable advice, often real time. For instance, in providing last-minute coaching to speakers at Cisco Live before stepping onto the stage. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Happy to be here.
Also up is Payal Gandhi-Hoon. Payal brings a combination of warmth and wisdom to every single interaction, and she will willingly span multiple time zones in order to meet the needs of our very diverse global clients around the world. In fact, you're doing that right now, Payal. And I think it's just a little past 10 in the evening your time, yet you're ready to go and contribute to the conversation.
Absolutely, Carrie. It's my pleasure to add value. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Isabel Walker joining us from across the pond. It's also early evening for her. And whether Isabel is facilitating a workshop to a standing room only group of audience members at a Women in Tech conference or offering very personalized one-on-one coaching, she has the ability to help people level up their communication through her expertise in strategic storytelling, message development, and more. So welcome, Izzy.
Thanks very much, Carrie. Well, what an intro. I'll try and live up to that.
I know you will. I've worked with you on many occasions. And thank you so much to our audience. I already see some questions coming in. So the way in which we came up with the questions to cover are we seeked questions from our subscribers and our community on LinkedIn. And if you happen to be in this session or are listening to it through our podcast, thank you very much for contributing some questions in advance. We also polled your expert facilitators that we have here who shared the most common questions that come up in the many different workshops and coaching sessions that we offer. And we will periodically be taking those that come in from our live audience. I'd like to kick off with one of the most common, and that is how I go about effectively managing my nerves. Izzy, I know you have a number of really robust advice on this subject. So how about if we kick off with you?
Yeah, and this one comes up every time in coaching, Carrie, absolutely reliably. And I can see it's the first question that's gone into the chat. I have a 6-point plan that I talk through with people when they tell me, how can I overcome nerves? First of all, I say, don't worry, it's universal. Everybody suffers from nerves. There's a fantastic quote from Mark Twain who says, there are two kinds of speakers, those who get nervous and those who are liars. So that helps to know that everybody suffers from it. Secondly, it is beneficial because when you feel that nervousness, what it's doing is putting your body into a state of arousal that gives you the energy to power a performance. And that's been shown to actually make your performance better. But what we say to ourselves about how we are feeling is really important in terms of the outcome. So if we say to ourselves, oh, this is awful, I feel nervous, that's not going to help. But if we can reframe those nerves as excitement, then there has been research that's shown that actually people do better with a challenging task if they say to themselves, I'm excited rather than I'm nervous, because the arousal that you feel when you're excited, like say you're going to listen to your favorite rock band, you're going to ride the world's biggest roller coaster, it's exactly the same. But in one sense, we reframe it positively and in another case, negatively. What first time I spoke at Women in Tech, the organizer came up to me beforehand and said, and I thought this was a bit tactless. He said, you must be very nervous. And I said, no, I'm excited. So I recommend that that's what people do. The third point is, often we get nervous because we worry about what can go wrong. Am I going to remember what I need to say about each of my slides? Is the tech going to work for me? Am I going to have people joining in a hybrid session that I don't know about? So the more prepared you can be, the better it's going to go for you and the less reason there is to feel nervous. So make sure you're familiar with the tech if it's a virtual session, that you're familiar with the platform and the tools and what they can do. Get into the room half an hour early to make sure everything's working. The same if it's in person. Get there early. Make sure everything's set up properly. Practice. Make sure you're familiar with your slides, the order of your slides, and what you want to say about each slide. Fifth point, get over yourself. Get out of your own head. Often what makes us feel nervous is we allow this critical voice in our heads to dominate. And the voice is telling us, they don't like me. They've all got their cameras switched off. Nobody's listening. They hate me. They don't agree with what I'm saying. And whenever you retreat inside your own head, you stop what you should be doing, which is serving your audience. So I say to people, have something you say to yourself to get out of your head, like get out or stop, and refocus on your audience. Final piece of advice, just do it. The more you present, the more you incorporate presentations into your comfort zone. You won't necessarily feel terribly confident at first, but my final piece of advice is fake it till you make it. Most people can't tell that you feel nervous. One day you won't have to fake it anymore because you will have arrived.
Oh, wow. That's packed with such just solid advice. Anything, Pyle or David, that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I love what you said about getting inside your own head, and many of the people I've coached in our workshops too. They just, if they don't know how they're doing, then they go to the worst case scenario. Like they must hate me because I'm not getting data, and this goes to in person versus online. Online, cameras are off. I don't know how I'm doing, and so one piece of advice I would add there is be completely audience conscious, like focused on their needs. And the more you're giving out and trying to give that gift of knowledge to them, the less time you have to be self-conscious, right? Audience conscious gives you no time to be self-conscious. That's all I would add there.
Yeah, completely agree.
Sure. David, I'm going to chime in. Carrie, if I may. One of the things that has worked for me, overcoming my nerves, I've been doing this for a long time, but every time, like Izzy rightly put it, you're never ready till you're ready and you're presenting there. And I think what's really worked for me is a breathing technique, something called as the 5-5-5 technique. Usually what I tend to do is before I get onto the stage or a panel discussion, just like today or anytime, I usually practice the 5-5-5 technique. So that really means you inhale for 5 seconds, inflate your belly, fill it up like a balloon, hold that breath for 5 seconds, and then release it from the other nostril and let go of all the anxiety and the worry. And like Izzy said, the inner chatter that's taking place. So the more you oxygenate your prefrontal cortex, the more relaxed you are going to be and think that everything's going to just work out fine.
And
Wonderful.
just one very last thing, which is you need to welcome these nerves. I mean, all of us here, we present several times a week, don't we? Now, I know if I wake up in the morning and I think, oh, hey ho, another presentation, what have I got to worry about? I do it thousands of times. That is when I'm going to fall flat. So it's good to have that racing heart, maybe even a bit of sweating. It's all going to help you.
Yeah. As a dear colleague said, honor the work. Honor the work. All right, let's build on this. Another very, very common question that comes up is advice for projecting confidence. So, a few different scenarios that were presented to us. How do I come across as confident if I'm new to a role, or if the audience is more expert than me, or if I'm presenting to executives? Payal, what top advice do you have?
Yeah, Carrie, I think I'm going to layer out the question because you're really talking about two aspects of being able to project confidence, also being able to present before an audience that is more experienced than you are. So I think one thing to remember as a presenter, whether you're starting or you've been presenting for a while, is to remember you've been chosen to be the presenter. And there is a reason that you've been chosen. Maybe it's your credibility. Maybe it is your technical knowledge. Maybe it is your mindset and powerful presence that you bring to the table. So remember and believe that others have seen that in you, and it's time to acknowledge that for yourself. And the second bit, addressing the part where you could have people, and it could be a C-suite or it could be senior stakeholders. Obviously, we all get the heebie-jeebies in our tummy and the butterflies going there. But the point of it is you can engage them in the conversation. Tap into their experience that they're bringing to the table. And if I can quote one of the examples, I remember erstwhile in my career, I was appointed to go and train the managers in their presentation skills for a law firm here in India. And I recall when I went there, I was all spruced up and prepared. And, life happens to you when you're busy making plans. And here, standing live in a training room, and I see the CEO of that law firm walk in. And he apparently he was going to be sitting through that entire training. Oh, good Lord. I had a frenzied attack, but of course I was live, so I couldn't do anything about it. So I took a deep breath and I had an on spot strategy saying, listen, let's make him an ally and let's engage him because he knows the business best and he knows what expectations does he have from the managers and partners when they're pitching to their clients. And wonders, it worked wonders because he was engaged. It aligned very well to the outcomes that we were looking at. At the end of it, I think the credibility went up many notches, you know. So this is a live experience that I really had. And finally, the point is it's really about taking the space and owning the space. And from a neuro-linguistic programming coaching tip, I'd like to just end on that note. If you were to enter a presentation, a discussion on the note of what if it works out, it's very empowering. Thank you, Carrie.
Oh, wonderful. I love that. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant advice. The other thing I always think is important to bear in mind is that communication is not about perfection, it's about connection. And that really can shift your mind in terms of one, calming the nerves, which we just talked about, and also projecting more confidence. Because if you slip up, you forget what you were going to say for a moment, the audience is very, very forgiving of that. You're there and you have something to serve.
Yeah.
Izzy?
Yeah, I just want to say a little bit about what we call powerful presence, which is to do with your delivery style. Oh, it helped to come over confident. The worst thing you can do is speak in a monotone like that, or speak very fast and never take any pauses. This doesn't make you look confident. What makes you look confident is slowing down, projecting, making sure that you intonate with great variety and having the courage to pause. So, and also when you're presenting virtually, you need to be looking into the camera. And when you're presenting live, you need to share your eye contact around the room. And all those things make you appear confident. And when you start to appear confident through a feedback mechanism, you also start to feel confident. So it really works.
Terrific. Terrific. So, David, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. We have several questions that came up with regard to uh, the added complexities of delivering virtually. One example is, despite all my effort, all my preparation, I feel that sometimes my presentation falls flat and I'm just not getting the level of engagement that I anticipated. Another is on the subject of engagement. I'm met with silence, and obviously the audience is even more distracted than they would be if we were face to face. So there's a lot there, but in general, what advice do you have for keeping the experience really dynamic and engaging, and strategies for bringing your audience into the conversation?
Sure. The short answer is you have to ask for it. I mean, part of the problem here is between in-person and virtual. In person, you've got so much more data. You kind of know how you're doing because there's more body language. You can see things out of the corner of your eye. You can hear a heavy sigh. You just more things that tell you how you're doing. And one of the things I've found in coaching is people feel uncomfortable because they don't know. I mean, cameras are off. People are not responding, probably multitasking a little bit as well. There's other distractions in the online environment. So as the speaker or facilitator, you just have to work a little harder. You have to reach out and get what you need because it's not as readily available. So one of the tools is what we call audience check-in, right? How's that landing on you? What are you thinking as I say this? Even a rhetorical question that doesn't require anyone to speak out loud, but like Izzy said, just pause. That's difficult, isn't it? Yes, we know it's difficult. And in that little space, that little couple of seconds, they're processing, answering to themselves. And going to the confidence issue, it's a moment where you can turn the spotlight off of you and whoop, your turn, audience. You think about that. You give me something. Okay, and now the spotlight comes back to me. That's one of the ways when you get that back and forth and turning the spotlight on the audience, on you, on the audience, on you, it feels more like a conversation, even if you're the only one talking.
Yeah. Such great advice, David. So one of the keys, I think, is the fact of the matter is it requires more intentionality. So when you have your talk prepared, even more than if you were in person, you literally need to insert and know in advance points at which it would be most effective to bring the audience into the conversation. And the other thing I'll add is using a person's name is so powerful. That will get the person's attention. And I don't necessarily mean putting them on the spot, because if you're in a situation in which you're presenting up and you're presenting to a group of executives and you can tell that the CEO is multitasking and very distracted, probably for a very good reason, you're not going to call that person on the spot, but you may say, Mary, I know that there's been a lot of work done by the marketing department on this particular strategy. So you're just referencing that person. And
And starting with a little praise, that never hurts.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it's trying to get the audience to speak. I was talking about rhetorical questions, but when it's time for the official Q&A, and we hear this a lot, people say, I ask, are there any questions? And I get crickets. What am I doing wrong? So I'll give you four methods to guarantee you're going to get people to speak up. First, never ask, are there any questions? That's the worst way. There's no peer pressure. There's no, and then people don't even pause after that. They say, are there any questions? No. Okay, let's keep going. Not going to worry. First is to change the question to, what questions do you have? Oh, and pause. That assumes I know you have them. Give them to me now. And let's say you still get crickets. Then I'll go to a little more specific request. So I'd just like to get some feedback. I'm going to hear from 2 or 3 people, just a minute each. Tell me how you think this solution is going to work in your environment. Who'd like to start?
And then you take a drink.
Take a drink. It's a pot, coffee cup, whatever. And I guarantee you, if you wait 7 seconds and you commit, hey, somebody will speak up. Now, let's say even that doesn't work. What's next? Then I would go to the solution you said of calling on someone. So just make it an easy question. You reduce the risk if you ask an open-ended question like, what are you thinking? Or, how is this landing on you? So that you're not putting them on the spot expecting a correct answer, right? You wouldn't say, hey, VP of Finance, what is the right number for that? And, trivia question. Don't put them on the spot and take that risk. And if you ask a question or use a name, you're likely to get some response, but let's say they're still kind of hesitant. If I get complete silence, I'll just ask and answer my own question, right? Well, I'm a little surprised that nobody has yet asked me about blank. Or the last group I spoke to, they were very interested in this. And that'll put some chum in the water and get things going when you're fishing for questions.
Oh,
One thing I'd add to that is that if you are giving a presentation and it's virtual and you're just showing slides, it's very easy for people to tune out and have their cameras off. So I think it's really, really helpful at regular intervals that you stop sharing or blank the screen, and that actually encourages people to switch their cameras on because they expect that a discussion is coming. So I do that at very regular intervals so that they can't escape.
Excellent. Yep, that pattern disruption. I want to bring Shannon Lovett into the conversation, one of our audience members. She's asking what advice we have for projecting executive presence. And Izzy, you touched on this a little bit, and it definitely gets piled to the point you were making about projecting confidence. Who would like to contribute?
I can go ahead with that one. To add to what Izzy said, she spoke about your nonverbal aspect. And I think when it comes to, especially when you're presenting up and you're presenting to the senior C-suite, what typically happens is we think we've got the presentation ready, we've got our body language in place. But the point is, when you're going to be thrown those kind of questions that you really dread coming your way, I think what is critical is to have that grace and the powerful presence to be able to maintain your calm and not really jump into answering those tough questions that are coming your way. So the tendency that I've seen a lot of times, we buckle under pressure, and I don't blame anyone for that because probably I would be in the same spot as well. So if you're thrown a question, you've been working on a presentation for a long, long time, you're invested in it emotionally. And here's a question where they say, what if we did not go ahead with the project plan that you are recommending? Now, you might get a little frazzled about it and start answering and justifying why this is so critical. But I think what's important is to take a deep breath, really listen to what the executive is asking you, and then be able to answer it very objectively. So I think that's another definition, Shannon, in terms of projecting your executive presence, especially when you're presenting to the senior C-suite.
And just to add to that, it's about not taking it personally. This is particularly applies when you're talking to executives. They're there to interrogate your ideas, your proposals. That's their job. It's what they're paid for. And so you need to detach yourself from that. It's not about you. It's about whether or not your ideas fit in with their organizational priorities. So don't take it personally, but remember that as a subject matter expert, which is why you've been invited to the meeting, you know more than them about what you're talking about, and that should give you some power and some confidence.
I think that's an excellent point in terms of just not taking it personally. I would just love to add, because we just recently completed doing extensive research by interviewing executives around the globe to understand what strategies and approaches are essential to be effective when presenting, to decision makers, to the C-suite. And we have a whole workshop on this subject, but we wanted to find out, what's shifted, what's added. And one of the key differences is in terms of what executive present really means and what the executives are seeking. That didn't come out as much in our first research. So, of course, it's about being competent and having the requisite knowledge to be in a position to present this business case or persuade and influence a positive outcome for the business. It's confidence, which we've talked a lot about. And the newer one that's pronounced so much more today is authenticity. So I think that's important to keep in mind because you are going to project your executive presence, or what we like to call powerful presence, in your unique way. It's not a one size fits all. So thank you so much for asking the question, Shannon. I want to get to one that came up earlier. Mary McGlynn's asking, I'm wondering how to most effectively incorporate AI into preparation for your presentation. And this ties to another one, and that is what do you do? What advice do you have if you're asked to develop and deliver a presentation pretty much last minute? So you don't have much of a window to get that done. And this is definitely an example in which AI can be an aid. Izzy, share some advice, and then David, I'd love if you could add to that.
Okay, well, we do it is a fantastic benefit nowadays that we can use AI. AI can help you to structure your presentation, to develop and refine the content, and it also can, within seconds, help you to create a slide deck. So I'm sure I'm going to hope that David is going to say a little bit more about that in detail, but I'm just going to tell you some steps that you shouldn't skip and that AI possibly couldn't help you with. First of all, you should always start by thinking about your audience. The audience focus is the first step. So who are they? Are they at the same level in terms of seniority and expertise, or are they mixed? Because that's going to dictate the amount of detail that you give and the language that you use. What do they know and think and believe about the topic you're talking about? What more do you think they need to know? What are they expected from you? That should always be your starting point. And then you move to create a framework for your presentation, and that's where AI can help. What you'll need in your presentation, you need a strong opening. You need a main message that you're going to repeat several times. You need some key data points consisting of a mixture of facts and figures and stories, and you need an action step that you want the audience to take at the end. And only when you've done that should you start thinking about a slide deck, rather than starting with what we call Frankensteining a slide deck, pulling together slides you used before. Only when you know what the story is that you want to tell should you start thinking about the slides, keeping them to a minimum, keeping them simple, one main message per slide, and minimizing text and using powerful images. So, David, I'm sure you've got things to add about how AI can help with that.
Oh, so many great gems in there, Izzy. I'll even challenge the first questions you were asking about what does my audience need? All that. Use AI for that too. I will often go in and say, hey, ChatGPT, tell me the top 10 issues keeping CIOs awake at night in relation to AI security. And I get 12 categories, right? Hey, condense these down to the top 3 for people in these countries, right? And it's helping you even ask it to ask you questions like, what questions should I be thinking about with this audience? It'll give you that. So with well-written prompts, you'll be able to get lots of different ideas. And then you, as the human being, you're still the adult in the room, and you got to decide which one of these am I going to choose and which ones are right based on your experience and research and conversations with other people. And the other thing I found is in our storytelling workshops, we have an exercise where we ask people about their hobbies and how can your hobby relate to your business presentation. And sometimes those dots don't connect naturally. But if you say, how is building a security platform like learning to snow ski? And it'll tell you, well, you have to learn how to brake first. So you have to have these safeguards in place before you can point your skis downhill and go that way. And then you can go even faster when you have the confidence that you have these tools to correct when things go wrong. Whoa, never thought of that, right? And then you relate it. It's always great to personalize a story from your own life just because you'll have more passion when you're telling it. One more quick little thing about the last minute thing you asked, Carrie. What I hear people do is the first thing they get up to speak. Hey, everybody, I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare this. I was just asked to come up here. So if it's not good, never start with an apology. Your audience doesn't know. They assume you were picked because you're the utmost expert on the topic. So always launch in with confidence, own that space, and never apologize.
Wonderful. All kinds of great advice, David. I'll just add a few because they're ones I tapped into very recently. A few weeks ago, I was the host at a Women in Tech conference in DC. And especially as a host over a 2-day conference, it's critical that you're very, very effective at aligning your opening to the overall conference theme. And that's where AI was a tremendous help to me. And I was pressed for time. I had many, many other priorities I was juggling. So I just had a conversation with ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever. I'm going to be speaking at a conference. Here's a little bit about me. Here's a little bit about the audience. This is the theme. Give me 3 examples of how I could open the entire conference in an engaging way, weaving in the conference theme. Saved me so much time. Otherwise, I'd have to go like on a 10-mile run to get those creative juices flowing. And then just another thing I wanted to say, David, and it goes back to the point you brought up, Izzy, with regard to audience centricity. You mentioned storytelling, David. So AI can be an invaluable tool. We all have those just super impactful strategic stories in our back pocket, or if we don't, you should, that are suitable to use in a business environment for different audiences, different purposes. You can take your story and tell your audience, ask AI to tailor it to a specific situation or tailor it to a specific audience. Or I need to convey this story in 2 minutes. How do I shorten this and still achieve the desired points? So hopefully that helped, Mary. There's just countless examples of where AI can be an invaluable complementary partner in the process of both researching your audience, researching your topic, preparing your talk, and even getting feedback on your rehearsals.
But just going back to what you were saying about authenticity, Carrie, whatever AI comes up with, you need to actually play with it, revise it, make it sound like your authentic voice. This has happened to me a couple of times that it's come up with something and I thought, well, I would never say it like that. But I think it's a starting point. It's not the end.
Exactly. It's such a great point, Izzy. It has to be in your voice. It has to suit your style, or it's going to feel disingenuous and a little bit too canned. Uh, on the topic of being too canned, Pyle, another question we often get, in addition to how can I project confidence, at the same time, how can I come off more conversational, more spontaneous in the moment, and not come off too rehearsed?
Yes.
Like, do you have?
Thanks, Carrie. It's interesting you asked me that question because the reason I say that is when I was doing my neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner certification in France, we had to select any one topic that you had to model experts of excellence in it. And being in the corporate arena for the longest time in learning and development, I think I had just become very staccato and I was just being very didactic and going by a lesson plan. And I had kind of, like Izzy said, lost my authenticity because I was just reeling out what I had to convey. So I chose something that was drastically different for me, which was being spontaneous. And I actually went about interviewing some models of excellence, studying them over 3 months to understand what is it that they do at a belief level, at a process level, to be able to bring that spontaneity. Because we all as children, remember, start out very spontaneous, but because of our conditioning or our experiences, you can blame it on the rain if you like, we have layers that come on and we tend to lose our spontaneity. And I can cull that out for you. Those 3 months of the master practitioner brought me out to one thing. Like you rightly said, Izzy, be yourself, be your unique self, and adopt, like Carrie said, adopt the portion that really resonates with you. Because there is no other person like you. And the benefit of being yourself is you tend to go easy and you can slip into your own storytelling, which is very unique to you and to the audience. So, at a belief level, I would say don't treat your presentations or your discussions as something which is more like a test of your ability, but it is really about having a conversation. And, that's really at a belief level, Carrie. And from the other perspective, at a process level, how can you really apply being conversational and spontaneous? Now, recently, I had the opportunity of turning in my 10th show in theater. And this time around, I was challenged because I was put through a very different act of narrating a soliloquy for about 5 minutes as a young woman who's deciding whether she wants to be a mother or not and give away her career. Now, I can tell you, I went over that script a million times to make it my own. Because as I stand before an audience in the theater arena, it has to look like I just started to have a conversation with myself, dealing with my own internal conflicts and dealing with what the world is giving to me, but it's just happening in the moment. But I can tell, and I think for all presenters out there, life is much easier because presentations are not exactly like theater that you have to stick to the script. So like Carrie said, have your bullet points in place and you can actually toggle around, have the main key points there, and then you can just make it a free-flowing conversation in an audience-centric way.
Oh, wonderful advice. David, what would you add?
Yeah, I'd love to add on to that, Payal. I love what you said, that it's theater. Yeah, most business presentations are the opposite of theater. They're boring, data heavy, slide heavy lectures. And one thing that I encourage people to do is, especially in a longer presentation, is you can plan to have off script moments. Right? People can kind of feel when it's a script, okay, he's doing the demo and all that. Before I go on, let me tell you something I just heard in the hallway when I was talking with one of your peers. They're like, well, oh, this is refreshing. Oh, good, a story. This is real. He's speaking from his heart. It's not part of the script. And so some of those off-script moments can be planned. You say, here, I'm going to interject the story that feels like it was spontaneous, but like you're choreographing it, but to the audience, it feels like, oh, good. Anecdotal evidence to help bring all this, analytical evidence to life in a different way. So off-script moments, welcomed by the audience, and it's good to even plan them in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would add that another key to being more conversational and spontaneous is to be acutely aware of all the signals that you're getting from your audience. So your ability to read the room in the moment allows you to react and adjust and respond to what you're getting at that time and not just be thinking about what am I going to be saying next. We have a question that came in from one of our audience members, Lonnie. Lonnie's asking for suggestions to making the message/presentation more relevant to an audience and letting them know why they should care about the message being shared.
And that's all about relevance to the audience, isn't it? Because the worst presenters think about what they want to say. The best presenters think, what do my audience need to hear? So you need to, from the start, do that interrogation of your audience, analyze it. What is it that you can say that makes it clear that this is going to be of interest for them? Because all audiences sitting there thinking, what's in it for me? And if you can't convince them within the first minute that what you're going to talk about is relevant for them, that's when they're going to switch off.
Completely. And I would just add that We have a number of really robust audience analysis tools that can help you go through that exercise of translating your message in a way that's going to really speak to the WIFM, what's in it for me, to the audience and translate that message. Thank you for that question, Lonnie. I want to touch on supplements. We've talked a lot about uh, how we project confidence, how we project powerful presence, at the same time appearing conversational and spontaneous. Let's delve into supplemental tools outside of AI. David, specifically, I'm talking about visual aids, often slides. What advice do you have? Top tips for ensuring that your slides help to punctuate your message and not replace you as the presenter. And then also any advice you have for effectively using notes.
Awesome. Okay, I'll give you, there's so many things on slide design, and our other panelists can join in on that too. I'll give you one big one. It's don't load them up with so much information. I see this all the time, especially in technical presentations. 4 quadrants on the slide, each one packed. This one has a chart. This one has 8 bullet points. This one has, it's like, are you paying by the slide here? Why don't you just make 4 slides and let us focus on each quadrant one at a time? It's a sequential and logical path. You're taking your audience down and trying to gain agreement along the way. And if your slide is dense, you're speaking out loud about point number 1, and they're already reading point number 4. So you're just inviting a disconnect right away when you load it up that much. And the other thing about slide is turn it off. Izzy mentioned this. Just, hey, it's time for us to have a conversation. So whoop, stop sharing. Slide goes away. Video gets large. We're talking to each other. So that would be the biggest one that I see. It's just stretch it out. It's okay to do that.
If I can add to that, if you ever find yourself saying, this is a very complicated slide, do not show that slide, because the audience is going to spend their whole time trying to work out what on earth that slide is about. And while they're doing it, they're not listening to you. So there's a real disconnect there. Also, if you have full sentences on your slides, that is an absolute no-no, because as David said, while you're talking about point 2, they're down there reading point 6, because people can read faster than you can talk. And while they're reading, they're not listening, because we use exactly the same part of our brain for listening as we do for reading. So the most, in terms of text, the most you should have on your slides are bullet points. And if you've got lots of bullet points, you should be building them so that they only see one at a time.
Yeah. And I'll add to now, what's the opposite of this? When I joined WebEx back in 2006, before people even knew what online meetings were, and the CMO got up and did an all-hands meeting, and his presentation was about 20 minutes long, and his slides were just full-color, emotion-inducing photographs. That was it. No words. You had to listen to him verbalizing it, and now we're expecting to rise even more in the third quarter, and this picture of a hot air balloon coming up over a mountain with the sunrise. It was like, and each thing had this direct, we need to work together. There's a team of people rowing like in a professional Olympic rowing boat. So think about that. The slide needs to support what you're saying. It's not you speaking to the slide. And that's, you hear that language. I'm going to speak to these slides.
Yeah.
I'll start preparing by putting these slides together.
I could show, not the slides.
Exactly. Just another thing I just would love to add in that I think helps this really resonate for people. Think of each of your slides as a billboard. It's one main message you're trying to get across. I'm driving down the freeway, and through the imagery, through the pithy language, I instantly have the message. If you haven't achieved that, it's not an effective slide. And I would just would also add this harkens back on the interviews that I mentioned that I've did with executives. Don't, if you're presenting up, don't lead with a slide. The executives are there to hear you. Additionally, if there happens to be tech issues at the outset, it saves you the problem of having to struggle with your tech to try to get your conversation started.
So, Carrie, you asked a question about notes. I didn't
Yes.
want to that one. I'll give a couple of things and then pass to the other panelists here. One, if you're presenting in person on a stage with a lectern, and you absolutely have to use notes, sometimes we have to. Hey, I was invited last minute to do this presentation. I need the notes. Lay them flat on the podium, print them out, lay them flat, and slide them across. As you walk across, you glance down, slide it. Nobody even knows they're there. Even putting a tablet up, people reach forward and they're scrolling down their laptop. People can see, oh, look, he's relying on the crutch of the notes. So try to make them invisible in a bigger room. Ask for a confidence monitor down by the stage. It looks like you're just looking at the front row, but you're actually looking at, the bullet point slides. And real quick for online, is just get your notes as close to the camera as possible. Because wherever your eyes are into the camera like this, everyone feels connected. You feel like I'm talking just to you. And then I look at my notes. It's like, what is he looking at? I don't know what it is, but it's not me. So move those notes as close as you can. It's better to even have them slightly above the camera versus below. Because you see my eyelids will drop when I look down at something. So that's one little cheat that you can use when you absolutely have to use notes. And I'll open up to anybody else with other recommendations.
Yeah,
Don't have full sentences. Sorry, Paul. Don't ever have full sentences, because if you have full sentences in your notes, you're going to be reading it, and as soon as you start reading, you stop sounding authentic. I can always tell when somebody's reading their notes. So the most you should have is bullet points. Sorry, Pyle.
No, that's absolutely fine, Izzy. We are on the same page, actually. And I'd like to just open up that at PowerSpeaking, we have frameworks that we actually use for all of our programs, be it presentation skills, presenting up, or it is powerful storytelling. And the reason I mention that is that usually when we encourage our presenters to write down their first draft, they tend to write it in complete sentences, which is really like a narrative version of it. And what we encourage them to do post that is to put it into bullet points so that it becomes more like a cheat sheet that you are just running your eyes over and keeping the conversation going as well, rather than getting married to the lines or the sentences that you have read out. And that also takes care of being audience-centric, like my fellow panelists said, because you're being able to pay attention to what the audience wants, browse through your notes on the go, and add on if there is anything that you need to add on.
Oh, such sound practical advice. All right. Given that we are nearing the end of the hour, I would love to take the opportunity to have each of you share your parting advice. So if the audience remembers nothing else, what do you want to leave them with, David?
Own your opportunity. Now, you've been asked to speak for a reason. Even if you don't feel fully qualified, fully worthy, fully experienced, doesn't matter. You got a moment to shine, and the audience is going to perceive whatever you give them in that moment. So give yourself some credit. You are where you are for a reason, and all the times you remember in your life that you've grown the most, it's when you were forced into an uncomfortable situation. So it's better to do it and have an oops than to live with a what if.
Mistakes are fleeting. Regrets last a lifetime. Izzy.
Okay, so I've just got 3 brief points. First of all, accept your nerves, make friends with your nerves, reframe it as excitement. Remember that they are there to help you. The day you don't feel nervous is the day you're going to fall flat. Secondly, do a lot of preparation. Prepare. Be very clear about the pace of your presentation, the order of your slide deck, what you want to say about each slide, and then equally importantly, practice. Don't just say it in your head. Practice out loud. Don't practice in front of the mirror. Practice by recording yourself on your smartphone or in Zoom and giving yourself useful feedback, or better still, getting feedback from a colleague or a friend. And then finally, just do it. If presenting is something that makes you feel worried, the best way to deal with it is to do it. Do it and do it again and do it again. And eventually your comfort zone will expand to encompass presentations.
Wonderful. I'm hearing some themes. Kyle?
Yes, and I think I'm going to chime in on the same theme as David and Izzy. I would say it's really like, the title of this talk is Your Burning Questions Getting Answered. And I sincerely hope we've been able to answer those questions. And it's almost like I love to share this in my coaching, that presentations almost like swimming. So we've given, as panelists, given you the advice that we could in terms of your safety and having your tubes in place. We can keep sitting at the poolside and speculating about the butterfly stroke and so on. But the point is, until and unless you take that plunge, you take that dive, and you don't realize how much water goes into your nostrils and, your mouth and coming out of your nostrils, you will never know what presentation is like. So keep diving in and enjoy the swim.
Oh, wonderful. Take the plunge. Take the plunge. Well, I want to thank our audience that your engagement has just been absolutely terrific. And David, Izzy, Pyle, thank you so much for taking the time to share just a little bit of your depth of knowledge that you have on this topic. We're going to close by giving you a preview of our topic for next month's live. This is all about offering strategies for how to incorporate humor into your presentations. So hope you can join us. It's going to be a lively one.